Hello, everyone. Thanks for listening to Wake Up, Look Up, a podcast where we connect events happening in real time to the gospel of Jesus Christ. I'm Zach Wyrock, and in today's episode, we're talking about young adult sadness. We're asking the question, is self-fulfillment a lie? This is prompted by a really interesting article I read in the New York Times about a study, a global study on human flourishing, particularly among young adults. The logic of anthropology over the last 100 years has been that life's happiness is kind of a U-shape, meaning when you're young, you're happy. In midlife, your happiness dips a little, and then it comes back up in old age, where hopefully you're a little more laid back and a little more enjoying the fruit of your labor of a lifetime of working. And so that U-shape is the normal way of thinking about happiness. But what we're finding is that increasingly people in their early 20s, people in that kind of 18 to 29 age range, a time historically where you would be very happy, are actually not that happy. That U-shape is flattening. Now, whenever I read a study like this, I'm always paying attention to how many people did they talk to, where do those people live, is it a robust enough sample size? But in this particular study, the answer is overwhelmingly yes. They talked to over 200,000 people in that 18 to 29 age range, and those people came from over 20 different countries. So this really is a global phenomenon. Young people around the world are more unhappy today than really they've been in the last 100 years. And that's especially true, by the way, in the US. The numbers across the globe show a decline in happiness, but it is most punctuated in the United States. Now, when they ask 18 to 29-year-olds, why are you unhappy? The causes they give are pretty interesting. They cite things like perfectionism, isolation, anxiety, disconnection, a lack of community. All these things are pretty common among the young people that are not happy. And they talk a lot about screens and replacing actual human interaction. Now, none of this should be surprising. We cover these kinds of stories all the time on Wake Up, Look Up, but I want to take a little bit of a different angle because I don't actually think the enemy in this story are screens. I think the enemy in this story is the whole concept of self-fulfillment. Now, we've been told for some time that we have a hierarchy of needs. This comes from Abraham Maslow's work, and that the pinnacle of our hierarchy is self-actualization, that a truly fulfilling life is a life where we become in tune with, comfortable with, and even proud of ourselves. And as a result, that's the kind of life we live. We pursue our dreams, our visions, our goals, our plan, because we're chasing self-actualization. But it doesn't work. I mean, these kids in this age range, they grew up in that culture. They've bought that lie, but it isn't working for them. And of course, that shouldn't be surprising if you've read the Bible, because God warns us about that. Jesus says it this way. This is a beautifully simple way of saying it. Whoever wants to gain his life will lose it. And whoever loses his life will gain it. Jesus is saying that if you make yourself the center of your universe will gradually implode upon itself. You need a higher calling. And of course, that's what Jesus came to give through his life, death, resurrection, and his kingdom that he's building. Isolation, which of course is what happens not just when we have screens, but when everyone in the room is chasing their own self-actualization, is untethering humans not just from each other, but from our actual meaning and purpose in life. Don't forget that in Genesis 2, God looks at Adam and says, it's not good that he be alone. We are made in the image of a triune God, a God in community. And lives of isolation will always lead to us withering. The truth is that achievement, self-actualization, is a fleeting goal. It's only as big as my life. life, which in the grand scheme of things isn't very big. And I live with that. I know that. So it creates this existential angst. That's why in 1 Peter 2, Peter is calling us as Christians to a bigger goal. We are a chosen people, a holy race, a priesthood of believers that God wants to use to spread the gospel around the world. Jesus said it this way: I've come so that you might have life and life more abundant. That's the Gospel of John chapter 10. And he didn't mean that I came to help you achieve self-actualization. He meant I came to rescue you from the banality of self-fulfillment, to make you a part of a kingdom that God is building. If we want to help young people, we do so by calling them to something greater than themselves, calling them to community, calling them to neighbor love, calling them to experience the radical love of God that is available in Jesus, and then to get busy joining Jesus in making all things new. Listen, if you're a young person listening to this and you felt unhappy recently, turn away from a culture of selfishness. That is not what leads to fulfillment. Instead, surrender your life to Jesus by losing the life of self-fulfillment. You might just gain your own soul. Hey, thanks for watching this episode of Wake Up, Look Up. If you enjoyed it, please help us get the word out by sharing it with someone you think might benefit from it. And while you're here, make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel to get further content, or even download the CCC app, where you'll find even more resources to help you grow in your faith and relationship with Jesus Christ.